Well, it's not working in prod. Indeed, it's not working in prod. Well, it's not my problem. It works just fine on my machine and on the dev server. Well,
I told you all systems are ISOs. And if it's working in dev, it's working in prod.
it's ISO?
Oh yeah, essentially, I mean, pretty much almost.
Almost? What do you mean, almost?
You know, there's maybe a very small gap in minor versions, and for some plugins. Nothing particularly important.
Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing out there in the internets? I am Peter McKee. I work at Docker on the developer relations team, and today we have Ben from Coder with us. Hi, Ben. Good. So Ben's a developer advocate at Coder, which is a startup here in Austin, Texas. He always loves working on different projects. He joined Coder to help make managing developers' lives easier and help them move to the cloud, to develop in the cloud. Originally from San Diego, loves the beach and surfing. So do I. Love to surf. Not that good at it. But yeah, he also runs the @coding community on Instagram with over 170,000 followers. That's huge. That's great, Ben. Hey, welcome again. Glad to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So we were just talking before the show, and we've been talking for a while, but so you've been around a little bit. So you're now in San Diego, originally from there. You're in New York, but Coder's in Austin. But because of all this pandemic craziness, when are you getting to Austin? I want to go have some barbecue with you.
Yeah, I really want to go to Austin. I just learned yesterday about breakfast tacos, which I believe is an Austin thing. I'm not sure if you've had those. I'm coming from San Diego, which has, like, I'd like to think a pretty good like Mexican food culture and things like that. I had never heard of breakfast tacos, so I definitely want to go to Austin, get some barbecue, have some breakfast tacos, because they sound incredible, but never had them.
Yeah, they are. They are. I was originally introduced to breakfast tacos in South Texas, in Corpus Christi, but down there they call them taquitos. And so even at like the Whataburger, they call them a taquito. But yeah, the rest of kind of Texas calls them breakfast tacos. But for those out there that don't know what a breakfast taco is, it's just like it sounds. It's a tortilla with eggs, bacon, cheese, or eggs, bacon, or eggs and sausage and cheese, or yeah, all kinds of different things. But it's basically take your breakfast plate and put it inside of tortillas and all kinds of sauces, and yeah, fantastic. You will love your breakfast tacos here. They're a staple of Austin for sure.
Yeah, no, it sounds incredible.
And then there's also some really, really good taco joints here in Austin. I'll put Austin taco trucks. You know, we have these food trucks, right, up against anybody's tacos. I know that's a bold statement out there, but I'm ready to fight for some tacos, for some Austin tacos for sure. All right. Oh, Chris is saying that, Ben, your sound doesn't sound that great. I think it's better. I think when you first talked, but I'm hearing you fine now. Chris, let me know if you still can't hear him. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for joining us, Chris. So, yeah, so Ben, tell me how you got involved with Coder and how you got into the DevRel position. Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit of your story, your journey on how you came to Coder and got into DevRel.
Yeah, totally. So I'm fairly new to Coder. Actually, I joined in early August, and prior to that, I still do development, but I was a self-taught developer where I would be doing web consulting for different companies. I was working on some projects on my own, things like that. And in my love for kind of programming and kind of like learning things myself through tutorials and things like that, I started a programming community where I would just share things and talk to other engineers and things like that. And that's how I actually met Coder in the first place. But what really interests me about Coder is I always kind of find it difficult to manage all my projects. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, but I'd kind of start a project, then kind of leave it on the back burner. It always feels difficult to kind of go back to it and start it, especially if I've kind of changed machines or done a whole bunch of different things. And I really am interested in how Coder is like kind of moving that forward and trying to move things away from like the local machine and into the cloud. So that's kind of my story as to how I got to Coder. But yeah, my background's originally in web development and a little bit of social media, and now just joined Coder. It's very much looking forward to moving to Austin though. I've kind of been hopping all over, but Austin I think is the end destination for sure.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I love Austin. Yeah, that's interesting. It's a little similar to my background. I was in the Coast Guard, but went into started developing applications and stuff. And then I was doing a CS degree, and I was learning more on the job and self-study and yeah. So I never ended up finishing my degree, and I think of myself as a self-taught developer. But yeah, super cool. Okay. So let's jump into it. Today, you're going to talk a little bit about Coder, show us a lot of Docker stuff with it and a lot of cool things coming. So whenever you're ready, I'd love to see what you have planned for us.
Yeah, totally. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull up Code Server. So this is our open source project. We were actually taking at it a couple of days ago. We were taking a look at it a couple of weeks ago, and we actually figured out that it was the like number 3 like developer tool on GitHub actually, when we were just looking in terms of contributions and stars and things like that. So that's pretty exciting to see. It was like a commercial enterprise tool just in terms of open source usage. So that was really exciting. And essentially what it does is it takes VS Code, which is a very popular text editor, and brings it into the browser so that you can install VS Code on any server or container or VM or something like that. So you don't need to develop locally anymore. And then you can access it through the web browser. So this is really interesting to me because really what it allows you to do is kind of code in places where it's previously a lot more difficult to, whether that's like maybe inside a Kubernetes cluster or on a VM somewhere where typically it's a lot more difficult, or you just have to SSH in, or maybe that's not possible due to network restrictions, things like that. So we have open sourced it and it's gotten a lot of traction. So what I'm going to do today is just first do a quick demo of Code Server and how that would work on a VM just in general. And then we're going to be taking a look at how it can kind of be used with Docker for a few different use cases. One, just in Docker to kind of create different environments, exposing different file systems of a server and creating different development workspaces. And then secondly, using Amazon ECS to then kind of deploy a development environment to the cloud so that we can have a fully managed development workspace in Docker Compose and really not have to manage anything besides just writing code and having that be managed in the cloud.
Yeah, cool.
Cool. So to get started, I have an Amazon EC2 instance. This is just a VM. This can be done just on your MacBook itself, but I just figured it'd make a little bit more sense to do it on a VM. So I've already kind of set up the SSH key and everything like that. And I actually have it open here. I have a little Apache web server on this VM, just like a nice little illustration, things like that. Nothing too exciting. And I'm just going to go ahead and SSH into it. And now that I'm into it, I'm going to go ahead and install Code Server. So what's nice is we have this nice little install script on our GitHub. And feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions, if you're getting anything in the chat, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm going to go ahead and just paste in this install script. And what this is going to do is just tell me what it's going to be doing on my server, right? So it's pretty simple looking here. It looks like it's installing with dpkg. And then giving us instructions to either enable it as a systemd process or just to start the binary itself. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the actual script over instead of just doing the dry run and install Code Server on this VM.
Awesome. Now Code Server, you said it was an exe or an executable?
Yeah, it's just an executable script. It's packaged. It's written in TypeScript.
Oh, cool. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and
no, I'm just kidding. I'm a TypeScript hater. I'm gonna get it. No, I love TypeScript. Don't tweet at me. Go ahead.
So I'm gonna, like, this can also be done as a Docker container, but first I'm just kind of doing the very bare setup. So yeah, now I can go ahead and just type Code Server and launch it. And it's telling me a few things now. I'm going to go ahead and make this window a little bit bigger. It's telling me that I have an HTTP server running. I'm using a password from some config file that was generated, and it's not using HTTPS. So this is kind of a little bit messy, especially because I'm using an EC2 VM in particular. I'm going to go ahead and bring up this other window, which is the like firewall rules for for my like EC2, my VM in the first place. And I actually don't have 8080 open. So I would have to go ahead and open up 8080. I would have to set up a, if I wanted to use HTTPS, if I wanted to like use extensions and have a secure experience, I'd have to do that. And then still I have this password authentication. So, I mean, to explain what I'm doing, here's the web server we're in. If I go to 8080, nothing's really going to happen because it's blocked. So one option is I can go ahead, set up a domain, set up things like that. But we recently have a solution for this called code server link. So I'm going to go ahead and just cancel out of this and type -- link. And what it's going to do is actually proxy the server over, and I can visit this URL here. Oh. And authenticate with my GitHub. And I'm going to go ahead and refresh. And I'm actually now into my code server instance, which is actually running on the VM, but it's being proxied through Coder here. And it says not secure. That's something that we're actually, I believe, patching today. But if I just go ahead and add HTTPS to the URL, I have a fully secure VS Code-based development environment, which will allow me to kind of edit the web server. So if I go ahead and maybe let's make a change to use my ocean image, and maybe I can just add a couple exclamation marks, save it, refresh it. I've just updated a web server running on a VM in real time through the web browser. So that's like, and I'm happy to just like stop here and ask questions, but what makes this really cool is one, like any computer can be used to access this development environment. I could do it from an iPad. I can do it from a Chromebook. I don't really need VS Code to be installed. I can just access it right through the web browser. And then secondly, it's a full development environment. I have a terminal open here, and I also have Git open on the side, but I can also just use Git through the terminal. So I can still follow a traditional workflow for developers, but just have that be all in a cloud server somewhere.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's super cool.
Yeah, and that was definitely a lot. So I'm happy to unpack that a little.
That's awesome. Okay, do me one favor, Ben. Can you bump up the resolution a little bit in your browser a little bit? Yeah. Okay, cool. We want everybody to see that this is the full on. Okay, cool. So you got code, VS Code running inside of the browser, being served up from an EC2 instance that you have your code server running on.
Yes, and it's full VS Code. I can go ahead and go to the extensions marketplace and install any extension I really want to. Yeah,
so this isn't Coder's reinvention of VS Code. This is VS Code, correct?
Yes, very much so. In the early days, we had to do a lot of patches, and since VS Code's kind of been moving over to a web-based approach with things like code spaces, it's getting closer and closer to like what the traditional VS Code is, but it's pretty much the same thing at this point.
Oh wow, that's super cool. And how'd you get it connected into that GitHub, into your source code there?
Into my source code?
Yeah, when you started up, you fired up the code server, ran your curl and ran your install script, and then you did the link. And how'd you link it up into the code there? So
yeah, that's a great question. So I mean, I have an Apache server, and you'll notice in the terminal here, I have it open on var www.html. I can open just as you would in VS Code, any directory in my server. So I could go to root, I could go to home, things like that. I'm basically entirely in my server through VS Code.
Ah, okay, cool. So you have an Apache server running on that EC2 instance, and you're just
exactly. That's all I'm doing with this demo. I also have a node, so I can go ahead and navigate to that. Let me go ahead and close this out. And this would actually kind of show another feature too, which is interesting. So I have a really boring Express app, hence the title. I'm gonna go ahead and open this in code server. So it'd be the same thing as you'd open it with code from locally, but just do code server and then open that up. So we'll go ahead and open in a new window. And I'm just gonna go ahead and run this app. And this is a oh, that's not good.
Of course, we're
Error
live.
in use.
There.
Let's see if I can put on another port real quick. It's interesting.
That is interesting.
It,
Well, cool. Okay, so give it a nice shot here, but yeah, no, okay. So that makes sense. So you could even okay. Well, I think you might be doing a demo. I don't want to. So you can actually
go
do
ahead.
a pull, right? You can pull from another Git repo and then open that up right in your code.
Exactly. You just open it right from the VM. And what I was trying to show, I'm not sure if it. Yeah, it looks like this Express example is not actually. Or it looks like it is. Let's see if we can do this one more time. Well, what's nice about Code Server as well is it kind of allows, or with our new link features, it kind of allows you to bypass a lot of the firewall things you'd have to do because it is being like backed by this GitHub proxy. So if I was to go ahead and, I guess I can do with port 80, but if I just did /proxy 80, it's going to go ahead and serve me port 80 from the server that would be on localhost, so that I wouldn't have to open that up to the public, if that
Cool.
makes sense. So it gives you kind of the localhost experience.
Yeah.
While it's still in a remote environment.
Ah, cool. Nice. Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I guess the next thing I can show is the ECS example. So I mean, this is a little bit different, but I've prepared an image with Code Server that then we wouldn't just be deploying to a VM, but we'd actually kind of be packaging this container with everything you would need for development and then just shipping that up to ECS, which is Amazon's container service, so that we could just have a container running in the cloud with everything we need to develop some type of app, and then we can just shut that down when we're done. I believe you did a demo on that on the ECS Docker Compose thing like last week. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Let me go ahead and get these things out of the way here, and we'll start doing the ECS stuff.
Perfect.
Cool. So to go back on just to kind of give people like a brief overview of the ECS stuff in general, I'm just going to do a Docker context list.
Hey, Ben.
And yeah.
Sorry. Bump your resolution up a little bit in that terminal.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So folks can see. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. The one problem is it's kind of difficult to fit everything in with this Docker command.
Yeah. No worries.
But I have this coder environment Docker context, which then is linked to Amazon ECS, and essentially I just have the AWS CLI installed so that it's all hooked up there with my tokens and everything like that.
Right.
And what I can do then is I'm currently in. I can open up another window which will show this better, and I'll be sure to pump up that resolution too.
Yeah, so where you're doing that. So a Docker context is the way you can point the Docker local instance where you're working, and you can point that at a different context. So you can point it into a public cloud, so into ECS or Azure, container ACI. And then you can run all the commands that you would run normally locally. You can run them in the cloud. Not all of them. What makes sense, right? So like Docker build, we don't run that in the cloud because we don't have a Docker engine up there that's going to build for you and put your images anywhere. But a lot of the compose features, so spinning up your application and running it right in ECS, you can do that all from locally using compose and our context integration with ECS. So that's what Ben's doing here.
Yeah, and that's something that's really exciting to me because, well, it's nice to kind of spin up development environments on like a VM or locally with Docker Compose. It'd be really cool just to push up a container somewhere that has like I said, like everything you need for development. It's super lightweight, and then if you don't need it or you need to like roll back to something else, you can in like one simple step.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking earlier before you were on the show, and we've been talking for a little while, but yeah, I have a nice fancy dancy iPad, right? And hoping I get a magic keyboard here for the holidays. And it has a nice mouse, nice keyboard on it. But yeah, this is perfect. I can do exactly what you said. Create my development image, run that right on ECS whenever I need to with the compose up. Do some coding while I'm sitting on the beach over the Christmas holidays. And then tear it down whenever I don't need it. And I don't have to lug around my big 16-inch MacBook Pro, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I have this this GitHub repo open here, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a Docker Compose up, and then I can go ahead and walk through what exactly it's doing. I just know it's a rather lengthy process, so we can go ahead and wait for that to spin. And I'm going to bump this back a little so we can see, and then let's do that. Cool. So what we have here is a Docker Compose file, which it's relatively simple. I created a code server service, which uses a custom image I just created, and I'll be sure to walk through that. And it's mounting a volume called project, which is just going to the home coder project, and then using this link command that I was talking about previously, so that we don't have to really worry about SSL or authentication. We can make sure that we're securely accessing our environment. And this is just the name that I gave this environment here. I also have a Redis database installed, and that will make a little bit more sense when I go into my image in particular. But essentially, I package an image that has both code server as well as some code so that we can write Python on that code server container.
Awesome.
So so going back, and this is a very simple container that I built, and I just kind of push it up to the Docker Hub.
Uh-oh.
Slice pounds out of range. Go ahead and just run that one more time. Would you have any idea what?
No, let me see your compose file again real quick.
Yeah, let me pop back to that.
There's your image, your volumes.
Yeah, it had worked previously.
Yes. Yeah. It's just a glitch in the matrix. We can go into you can go into, oh, because it's in progress. So you can go into the AWS console, and we can
Right.
take a look at what's going on, and we can
yeah, let's do that. I can bump this up as well. I might need to just take it down and bring it back up again.
Yeah. You didn't sacrifice enough to the demo gods before you joined.
I guess not. No, yeah.
Now
You can only like try it so many times.
and
Yeah,
now,
it looks like it got Redis working, but not the code server.
yeah, you can did you run, is it still running up? No. You can just delete the cluster, delete your tasks and clusters.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. Enable
Yeah, you might have to do.
Should I take it down, or should I just kind of delete all the?
It'll probably ask you to, yeah. What did it say at the top there?
Well, it said unable to delete.
What is it?
Tasks running.
It should tell you what it can't delete.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, cool. Chris is asking. I'll answer this question while you're maybe try and spin it again, make sure everything's down. But Chris is asking, when did Docker Compose become a thing? Oh, can
Are you there?
but my nothing like live streaming. So my kids were on a walk, and everybody at home with the pandemic, right? And so my kids just came home, and my 3-year-old is having a meltdown. So please forgive me if you heard some screaming in the background. No children were harmed in the process. He was just okay. So Chris was asking, when did Docker Compose become a thing? And yeah, Chris, the space in there is the difference. So yeah, so we've had Docker Compose for a while now. So when we GA'd, when we originally started out, we were wanted to get the bits out to developers and get people's hands on it, right? So it used to be Docker AWS Compose. But then we started unifying the DX is what we call it, the developer experience. And so we wanted to be able to do Docker Compose functionality, just like you would if you ran Docker dash compose. But we didn't want to have to switch between two different tools, right? So we're bringing over different contexts, different cloud providers, public, private, those type of things, different places where you can run your containers, right? Is a kind of a loose definition of what a context is. And once you set your context, then you can use Docker Compose commands in that context. And it knows how to work with ECS, how to work with Azure, those type of things. And so, yeah, so Docker Space Compose is the direction we're moving forward. Hope that answers your question.
I have a question adding on to that while we're waiting. Is that going to work with local environments too? Because I know I read somewhere that you should dash compose when just working on your local machine.
Correct. Yeah. Currently, right now, to get the full experience locally, you still use Docker dash compose, but the developer experience will be lined up, right? So you would use Docker Compose. You can do that locally, and then you can also point your context into ECS and run Docker Compose up.
Perfect. Yeah, I took it down. It looks like entirely and seems to be
there. We go.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to go back and now we'll just take a look at the image that I'm using, the bencoder Python dev. And like I said, this is something I published to the Docker Hub, but I also just made the Docker file. So this is a very basic image. We're just starting with code server. We have an image in the Docker Hub, which just allows you to run code server and then expose the volume and start coding off of it. And it's a Debian-based image, so I'm just installing some tools for Python development. It's very simple, maybe not something I'd recommend, but I'm also just copying over a Python app into the environment and giving the coder user permission to use it. And if we just take a look at this Python app, it's a very simple Hello World app. I stole it from the Docker Compose demo in the first place, but the cool thing is that instead of just developing this locally, we'll have a cloud-based environment with Redis and code server that we'll be able to work off of. So waiting for a few final things to spin up here, but then we should be able to just log in as we did with our VM and start working on this Python app.
Cool. I have some questions we can talk about while that's spinning up. So Adrian ask, is it possible to connect ECS service with an ALB using Docker dash compose up? Yes, you can connect to load balancers, right? And there's some resources out there that I'll put some links in that you can go see a blog post and a demo of that. So yeah, 100%. You can connect right into a load balancer. Docker Compose will set up the load balancer for you. And then if you need to do anything more, more advanced, right, you can dump out the cloud formation and you can edit the cloud formation right there. But yes, Docker Space Compose into ECS will set up a load balancer for you, uses Cloud Map for service discovery and all those type of things. All right. Okay, so sorry, Sam, it's not you, it's probably me in explaining it. So Sam asks, so you should be using Docker Space Compose locally as opposed to Docker dash compose. Rather confused by this. Well, it's not you, Sam. So you're totally fine. It's actually the opposite. So to run locally, you use Docker dash compose right now. And then to run anything into the clouds that we support, which is AWS and Azure, then you would use Docker Space. See, that's why you're confused. Docker Space Compose. All right. So locally, Docker dash compose. And when you're talking to the clouds into a different context, you'll use Docker Space Compose. Cool. And I think we got a couple more here. Here's a good one. So is it possible to share one code server for multiple users?
In terms of like pair programming, that's something that is being like there's a third party like community plugin that supports that at this time, but we don't have a pair programming thing. What we're currently recommending is that just you use Docker or something like Kubernetes to create different code server instances for different users.
Oh, okay. So the code server is kind of like, so locally I have I did a symlink into VS Code, so I can write code on the command line, right?
Yes.
So it's the same thing, right? But I do code dash server. It's the same thing as I'm starting up VS Code locally. I'm just starting it up on an instance.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes. But yes, that is correct. And then with the code server Docker container, you would be able to then, I'm going to go ahead and just hop onto this. Oh no. The demo gods really don't like me today.
No.
You're seeing some other type of error. Oh well. But with the, I can go ahead and do this locally. I think we'd be getting the same message across. So let me go ahead and change my context back. To use. This would just be me running it with Docker Compose, the bash locally.
Yeah, cool. Okay, I'm just reading questions. Okay, cool. Yep. So when I was looking at questions, so everything spun up in ECS?
Was that one of the questions?
Oh no, yeah, from me. That's your host question.
Oh, yeah, I was getting an error in ECS, so I just switched to local.
Okay.
And this should be working in ECS just fine, but I'm just running it locally on my MacBook now. I'm not sure what the issue is there. I'll have to go back and check out the demo. Like I said, the demo gods, I guess, aren't on my side. But what I'm in now is I am inside a container. Let's just change this to the secure URL. I am completely in a container with a VS Code instance and a Python script right here. And I can go ahead and open up a terminal, just write in VS Code. And I can just go ahead and run this Python script.
Cool. Don't worry, Sam says he said he's kind of feeling the same way today.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure what the issue is getting that up to ECS. It's a pain that we have to wait so long. Otherwise, I would just kind of try it again. But
yeah, no, and it's yeah, it's some of the things I think when a lot of people come new to any technology, even development, right? They think you know, folks, senior developers have been coding and everything just works for them. Well, no, it doesn't. Things break. You got to troubleshoot. Yeah, 100%.
Cool. So what I was trying to show earlier, and I did a little bit, but I have this app running now on port 5000, and since I'm in a container, that I didn't expose that in any way. But because we're using this cloud feature that we have, we can just go ahead and do /proxy 5000, and we get this app, which is then using the Redis database to just kind of reflect how many times it's been edited.
Yeah.
And we can go ahead and like change that, things like that. But what's cool is we're with a couple moving pieces. We have and then we have another Redis like database in the Docker Compose, but none of this I have to work on locally. And then again, like you were saying, I can just get an iPad or a Chromebook or something with like the iPad with the Magic Keyboard and just pick up development from there. And just I can show you if I like open up an incognito window and try to go to this URL, it's going to ask me to sign in with my GitHub. So it's not something that's publicly available. It's kind of locked in by the my GitHub account.
Yeah, cool. That's what I was going to ask is how you can, you know, I'm not doing any top secret development, but I'm sure, you know, folks out there want to know, hey, if I'm developing in the cloud and I have access to these public URLs, are other people able to go see these things, right? And so that's cool. So they can't. Awesome.
Yeah, that's why we're so excited about going back to this isn't like something that you have to use in code server, but that's why we're so excited about our link feature, which then allows you to proxy it. But if you want, you can just run it as a code server and use whatever type of proxying or authentication you would then want to. But we kind of deal with that by giving them this cloud URL. It's not being hosted by us. It's being hosted on my local machine. It should be hosted on ECS, but that wasn't quite working. But we're able to kind of access it as if it was hosted publicly.
Awesome. We got a question here that was confused about earlier too. But so how to share your configured code server to other people on your team, right? And I can think of
exactly.
Think of a way or two, but yeah, go ahead. Cool.
Well, I'd love to hear what you're thinking from our perspective, from your perspective, because I mean that's something we're doing in our enterprise offering, and there's certainly ways you can do it with just code server itself. But I'd love to hear what you're thinking.
Yeah, I think I would just do it, not knowing a whole bunch, right, and just kind of seeing some stuff now, but and being Docker biased, right, container biased. Yeah, I would do what you do, and have these development images in Hub in a private repo that your team has access to. And I just pull that image and run it, right? And then and it has everything I need inside of that image, my VS Code, everything, right? And it spins me up very fast, as opposed to something, around, downloading and installing things and everything, right? I could spin this environment up really, I just need Docker on my machine, spin up my development image that has Coder inside of it, and then either pull down my source code or share a volume into that image, right? And start coding away, right? Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of the like kind of value prop with coding in the cloud is, or just coding with Docker in general, using Docker as part of your development like workspace, is that you can create an image like this. This is a very simple image that I have, and I'm gonna go ahead and just pull it back down. I have two monitors, but it saves the developer a lot of steps where maybe they'd have to install Python in the right version of Python, and then set up Flask, and then install a Redis database and things like that. If all of that's in a Docker Compose or inside like an image, and the developer can just start and have a workspace where they can work off of, that's so much easier. It saves you a lot of time, and it makes it so that you can kind of code from any device.
Right. Sam's on a roll today. He said, yeah, this is about the time of day I just restart my machine. Just turn it off and turn it back on. I agree.
Yeah.
I know a lot of times, like, all right, I'm, working in tech, and I used to work at Dell. And so anybody that ever owned a Dell laptop at holidays and Thanksgiving and Christmas and those stuff would always ask me, hey, I'm having a problem with my Dell. And I would always, you should try restarting it. That was always my fix. But so I can definitely see this, Ben. Let's say I'm in a microservices, team, right? And I'm working on 2 or 3 services myself. Then I could totally have coder images for each one of those different services, right? Compose them together using Docker Compose and spin them all up together, right? And the 2 that I'm working on, I can map volumes in and start them more in a dev mode. And the other 3 that I might need is a login service or, a rating system, whatever services that I don't develop, but I want them running locally. Then I just run their images, right? And run that all locally. And everything's contained in images. It's all wrapped up in Docker Compose. And I fire that up with one command. Networking is all handled for me. Service discovery. You could put volumes in there and share volumes and stuff. Super cool. Super, super cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff, and that's why I'm pretty glad you introduced me to the ECS integration, because, I mean, to me, it's just really cool to just be able to pop that up on the cloud somewhere, without really having to think about it much, and then you can just take it down at any time, things like that. But then still having like a central source for like a team to work. And I don't want to like be an ad for what we're doing in enterprise, but that's very similar to some of the things we're thinking about. And we're also kind of looking at a way to make that generally available to the open source community. It's like, how can we create reproducible images, share that with the team, allow people to attach sidecars similar to like Docker Compose, but Coder Enterprise is written in these, and have all these like resources centrally available so that everyone can kind of start developing with the same environment. So it's a really interesting problem. And it's something I'm like, just, I think this is like a very simple demo of how that can be done.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool. Super cool. All right. Anything else you want to demo and share with us?
At this time, no. I mean, I could pop open our enterprise and show you some of the things we're working on, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure if the audience. Sure.
Please do. I'd love to see it. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, because I
Go
know.
ahead and just open.
Oh, sorry, Ben. I know we've been talking in the
No, go
past
ahead.
of yeah, and you mentioned it today too, of running multiple instances of Coder in a Kubernetes cluster, right? And having your dev teams be able to pull right into there. And now you have in your container, your image is standard across for your whole team, right? And it's running in the cloud. Super helpful to use Docker with Coder to onboard developers and get them up to speed really fast, right? So it's very interesting.
I think it might be more interesting to just kind of show it from a blank slate and then show how maybe it'd be set up. So we kind of have a few different things. We have environments, images, and then services. And then the services would kind of be the sidecar containers that you were talking about, where maybe they'd be able to attach a microservice, but we're kind of looking at a better way we would allow it to do that. So in terms of images, I already have 2 different images. These are both just 2 different images for node development, but I can also go ahead and import one for Python. Let me go ahead and we do have that. Okay. I can go ahead and create an environment. And this would be kind of creating a code server container or a code server like workspace all to itself.
Okay.
And I can go ahead and pick a packaged image. This looks a little bit fancy, but when I go ahead and click on one, say I want to do like Ruby development, it just goes back to this screen where I'm importing it from the Docker Hub. Here's the image, the tag, and I'm also able to kind of attach a .files repo, so that would kind of be slapped on top of the environment, so that I am able to kind of add my own personalizations or whatnot. I'm just going to go ahead and remove that for now. Let's just name this Ruby.
So you're telling,
just for
real quick. So in the image, so you're pointing the hub and you're telling it, hey, use this image as for my development environment.
Yes, and I could just do Ubuntu.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like any type of special image, but it would have code server on it. But if I do, if I go back to the Ruby one, it will be Ubuntu with what you need on top of it to do Ruby development.
Yeah, cool.
And what I'll be able to do in a second, and yeah, I believe this will be the first environment because I cleared this out before this. What I'd be able to do is launch code server from it as well as a terminal. And then if I'm using another image, which perhaps I'll just create that one on the side as well. Create one for PyCharm. I can actually launch PyCharm from the web browser as well. There's like typically a desktop IDE. It's not even in Electron, which is pretty interesting. And we were able to work with the JetBrains team to, well, they did most of the work, but we were able to kind of add that into code server as well.
Oh,
into Coder as well.
And doesn't Go have an IDE too by JetBrains?
Yes, yeah. So we support all JetBrains IDEs using a tool called Projector, which is like a level up from kind of something like VNC or WASM or things, or BNC or like an X server or something like that. So it's a really native experience.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah, I can kind of wait for these to spin up, but the idea here is that it's the same thing that we were kind of doing, that this would allow me to kind of access it through localhost, things like that. But then I would get my kind of own separate environment, and you'd be able to like do all the enterprise things you need, like add different users so they could create their own environments, manage different organizations, things of that nature.
Cool. Okay, I got to pause right now. All right, I will give you a shout out, but I'm gonna mispronounce your name, so you have to forgive me. Although I know how to pronounce Alan, that is my middle name. Briuna? We'll go with that. Here's your shout out. Thanks for joining. I really, really appreciate it. He said please. He was saying please. So I couldn't ignore him. Sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
That's awesome. So while we're waiting for it to show up, I can kind of show a few of the other things that we do, which things like Docker and Kubernetes do pretty well, but we just kind of have a UI as well for like, say like you want to, when we're creating an environment, it's just something I kind of glossed over too. You're able to control how many CPU cores, memory, disk space for that specific environment. So it's kind of restricted in a way, but then you can also configure over provisioning. So if you're doing something like a build or a unit test or something like that, you can kind of ramp up the resources for that environment when needed to be able to utilize those. So, I mean, I guess that's one other like interesting thing we're kind of thinking about and working on.
Yeah, cool.
Looks like we're almost done with this PyCharm one. Go ahead and just, I think I gave myself a pretty small like demo environment for Coder, so it's been taking a while. But that being said, I can now launch VS Code, just a web-based terminal as well. And if I just open VS Code, we'll see code server like I did before, kind of spinning up. And finally, I can open PyCharm.
Wait for it. Come on, PyCharm. There it goes.
Yeah, right. There we go. The demo gods seem to like me for this one. Knock on wood.
Nice.
Oh, mostly. I spoke too soon.
It's probably a small. It's probably a small instance on its.
Yeah, I think the issue is I made an awfully small instance for this demo environment. But it uses a project by JetBrains called Projector that they're working on pretty actively to kind of port it over. So it's really cool to see a lot of different spaces kind of working towards this shared. Oh, there we go. PyCharm, new project.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I made myself a very small environment, so I'm kind of hoping to slip by here. But like I was saying, it's really cool to see a lot of different spaces, whether that's like Docker or an IDE like PyCharm or VS Code, really making the extra steps to make it so that like we can develop on the cloud, because I think in a lot of ways it makes more sense than developing locally, especially for things like collaboration or like standardizing different resources, some of the things that you were talking about.
Yeah, super cool. All right.
Yeah, it's I can kind of wrestle with it, but I'm a little worried that I created a too small of an environment. But
yeah, no worries.
But like I said, what's nice about these environments is that like they're pre-made for Python. So I mean, obviously, if I open up a terminal here, I have Python. Maybe there we go. And we're just pretty much all good for development. And then anyone can just create these custom images, publish it to a Docker Hub or any registry of their choice, really, and be able to kind of share that with the team.
Yeah, cool. Super cool. All right. That's pretty cool. I'm really excited about it, to be honest with you. I know, I'm not kidding of wanting to be able to use my iPad, right, in an environment. And I want everything to be contained in an image so I can move it around and run it wherever I need. Awesome solution. Well, perfect. So we're running out of time here a little bit, but yeah, tell folks where you can be found on the internet. Sure, people will want to connect with you out there and learn more. But
yeah, totally.
Good.
I don't see the screen that's being shared, but my Twitter handle is like BPMCT. You can also reach me on Instagram there. And then we also have a link to join the Coder Slack, where we're really looking for feedback on the link feature in particular, which is kind of giving people like a cloud access to their private environments, like I was showing with the SSL and the GitHub authentication and things of that nature. we're really looking for feedback there, as well as just more use cases as to maybe why you'd want to be developing in the cloud and how we can kind of help that. One thing we're looking at is kind of creating a library of these images. So I created that very basic one for Python development. But it'd be cool if we could have a library so that anyone who just wanted to do development, they wouldn't have to be using something like Coder Enterprise, but they could just spin up a code server with that image and just be able to kind of start developing in wherever they wanted, essentially, but just in a container.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so everybody out there that interested, go join the community Slack, the Coder community Slack. And then also check out Ben on the web, on Twitter and Instagram. The handle is the same, so at BPMCT. And yeah,
I see the screen now. It's up. Awesome.
Yeah, perfect. And please, follow me on Twitter. Give me a shout out. Stay up to date when we're going to go live with the shows, what's coming up, other Docker news information. Also follow Docker, so at Docker. And then just like Coder, the community Slack, join us on the community Slack. So you can go to docker.com/docker-community. I'm in there. A lot of the engineers are in there. A lot of great people in the community. We have a huge community that's international and can help you out with any kind of more specific questions you need. But please feel free to reach out to me on either in the community Slack or on Twitter or on LinkedIn. I will definitely respond. If you ask, I will say, I always give this caveat. It's really hard to help people with some of their more in-depth, difficult problems they're having specifically in their environments over Twitter and those type of things. So, so if it gets too much in detail, there might be an issue for support or something like that. But, don't hesitate to reach out and we could take it from there. But I'd love to talk to everybody. And yeah, thanks so much for everybody for joining and your interaction. And we will be back again next week. Ben, thank you so much for joining. This is really cool stuff you guys are doing. And really looking forward to when you get here to Austin and we can grab a beer and some barbecue together.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was exciting to share some things.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. You have a great weekend. Take care.